In this lesson, I will talk about unique speaking style that each individual has. So the first speaking style is called the race car versus the cruise ship. This metaphor describes fast versus slow speakers. Fast speakers are like race cars. Speedy, adrenaline pumping, but sometimes they miss details or crash, meaning they get ahead of their thoughts or lose their clarity. Slow speakers are like cruise ships, steady, thoughtful, but sometimes they take too long to arrive at their destination. This analogy maybe makes you laugh, but let me ask you, which one are you? Race car or cruise ship? The second speaking style is the puzzle master versus the word juggler. The speaker who is a puzzle master carefully and methodologically lay out their words and thoughts like puzzle pieces fitting together, making sure everything is clear and logical. On the other hand, word juggler throws ideas around one after the other, sometimes catching all the pieces, sometimes dropping them. So, my friend, where do you stand? Are you a puzzle master or you juggle with your thoughts skillfully? Third speaking style is thought tornado versus thought laser. This metaphor describes disorganized versus organized speakers. A thought tornado whirls in every direction, interesting, dynamic, but unpredictable and chaotic. A thought laser, on the other hand, is a sharp, focused, cutting straight through to the point. Can you harness the intensity of a thought tornado while sharpening your ideas into a thought laser when necessary? When we talk about speaking, there is something called the spotlight effect. It is the concept of how people think others are judging them much more harshly than they actually are. This creates high public speaking anxiety. Many people speak slow or cautiously because they think every mistake is magnified. But in reality, most listeners do not pay attention to minor errors. This realization can be a mind-blowing moment for so many slow speakers. Maybe you always think that you are in a stage spotlight, when in reality you are not. It's just a conversation. Another thing you should be aware of is ramble trap. Some speakers fall into what I would call the ramble trap. Once they start, they cannot stop. And suddenly they are miles away from any point that they wanted to make. Do you have a problem with this speaking obstacle? Do you recognize that you are one of the speakers who very easily stray away from the topic in your own language also? When you do that, go back to the point with sentences like this. What I really want to say is, or something like this. So back to my main point, or something like, in other words, or the key takeaway here is, or something like, to sum it up. This will get you back on your tracks and help you be more organized and focused. Let's talk about something called the power of silence. Silence is golden in speech. It is not just for pauses. Just as slow speakers should realize that nobody has placed them on a stage with a spotlight and pay less attention to their potential mistakes and overthinking, fast speakers should understand that silence can be the most powerful move. Dramatic pauses can build tension, demand attention, and give listeners time to absorb your key points. This turns something they may fear, which is awkward silence, into a tool of authority and impact. Listen to this. You have spent years learning English, perfecting grammar, and memorizing vocabulary. But without confidence, none of it truly matters. Right? The power of silence. If you diagnose yourself to be a disorganized speaker, here is another suggestion. Embrace your chaos. Give yourself permission to be chaotic. Sometimes spontaneity and chaos make for the most memorable conversations. The trick is to find the rhythm in the chaos and learn how to pull the audience along for the ride. However chaotic your speaking becomes, you can always interrupt it with useful phrases such as, speaking of that, it reminds me of, or something like, interestingly, that ties back to what I was saying earlier about, or something like, let me pause here and highlight the most important takeaway. Or when you notice that you don't have a structure in your speaking, turn to a personal or general story. Story naturally has a beginning, middle, and the end, and it can turn randomness into something more organized. No matter your speaking style, whether you're a fast talker, an organized planner, or someone who embraces a bit of a chaos, remember, there is no right or wrong way to speak. The key is understanding your unique style, both in your own language as well as in English, and learning how to use it to communicate more effectively. Use all the techniques that I have mentioned to own your style, to refine it, and let it become your greatest asset in communication. After all, the most impactful speakers aren't the ones who conform. They are the ones who confidently make their own mark.